So sorry about that, everybody. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty. I launched the video just a moment ago. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I launched the video just a moment ago and I had 9 people hop on and then it crashed on me. I'm so sorry. I hope we can get some of you back. If you're on right now, just give me a shout in the comments. Say hello. Let me know if you're here. I'm going to give it a minute or two anyway. Looks like I got about 13 people. Awesome. Great. Hi, Tracy from Virginia. Thanks for coming. While I'm waiting for the folks that I maybe lost to get back on, I would love to hear from those of you in the comments. If you're a prospective volunteer, a current volunteer, or if you're just somebody who's here because you're interested in pet partners generally, even if you don't want to volunteer. And I ask that because today's session is really about getting started with pet partners. It's called Volunteering with Your Pet. It's kind of an introductory session. So I'm kind of curious how many people are here because they are prospective volunteers and how many are current volunteers. So drop that in the comments. I see we got folks from Connecticut and Texas, New Jersey. I already said hello to Virginia. I'm in Minnesota, by the way, so we're getting the Midwest represented as well. All right, great. Thanks, Allison. So you're a prospective volunteer. That's what I'm looking to know. Hi, Gloria, current volunteer. Awesome. I'm going to wait for a few more people to give me that comment. So again, I'm looking to know if you're a prospective volunteer or current volunteer, or if you're somebody who's just here to find out more about pet partners generally. Great. Stephanie, I see you, another prospective volunteer. Awesome. The other thing I would really like to know, hey, Mary from Georgia. Mary, I think you have the pig, right? Which actually leads me to my next question, which is I would love to know what kind of pets you all have. If you're looking to register with Pet Partner, what kind of pet, what species is it that you are considering joining us with? Hi, Jocelyn. Hey, Debbie. Bianca from South Florida. Ooh, Bianca has her evaluation on Sunday, so that's great. More perspectives from from Wisconsin. So, yep, Mary's here with her pig, or she has a pig that she's registered with. And I would love to know what other types of animals those of you have who you are interested in joining with. I see Casey's got a Great Pyrenees, so a dog there. English Mastiff, Basset Hound, Peaches, yeah. Sheepdog. Oh, great, we've got a cat owner here too. Just waiting for some more to come in. Not surprising, lots of golden retrievers, more Great Pyrenees, Aussie Shep, and a Red Heeler mix in Kansas. Awesome. So the one thing I want to say before I get started about species is that Pet Partners registers 9 different species. And so I'm going to try to cover all of them. I always feel like I leave one off the list, but dogs are obviously the most common. And then horses and cats come in after that. Then we register as well rabbits, guinea pigs, rats, birds, pigs, llamas, and alpacas. So all of those species are represented by Pet Partners. Dogs is the most common with about 94%, but we always try to be as inclusive as we can of all species. So you may hear me refer to in today's presentation to your dog or this dog, but just remember that we have species-specific evaluations, species-specific preparation materials, so we definitely appreciate all of you out there who have non-canines. So with that said, I would like to start us off just with a little bit of information about COVID. It just feels like something we always have to do whenever we're talking to the general public. You know, I want to address what our current context means and how COVID-19 and social distancing, shelter in place, quarantining, how all of those things are affecting Pet Partners because, of course, it's affecting us the same way it's affecting all sorts of nonprofits and businesses out there. As you'll find out as I talk a little bit more today, a required component of joining Pet Partners is an in-person evaluation. And that's where you're assessed for suitability with your animal for this type of volunteerism. We are allowing evaluations to happen right now for new teams, albeit with some adjustments to make them even safer. But I do want to be really honest that evaluations aren't as available as they normally would be. So if you are a prospective team, you might not be able to complete all steps of our process right away. But you'll find as I talk today, there are a lot of things that you can do, even if you can't get an evaluation right away. Usually for most teams, this is a months-long process. So get started now, and that way when more evaluations come on the calendar, you'll be ready to go. But I do want to say to that as well, if you do feel like you're ready to evaluate and you're not seeing anything in your area for evaluations, please feel free to reach out to us. We have a contact us button at the bottom of every single page of our website, or you can reach out to us via direct message here on Facebook. We'll do our best to try to help everybody on an individual basis get an evaluation, so long as there's an evaluator in your area who's feeling comfortable holding an evaluation. All right, so that's the necessary COVID talk. I want to get into some other details about volunteering with pet partners. So I'd like to start broadly and just tell you kind of the 4 main steps for joining us as a volunteer team. And I should be kind of strip it down to the basics and say, just so you know, a team is 1 human, a handler, and 1 animal, and that makes a team. Some people are part of 2 teams. So it might be Jane the handler with Fluffy the dog and also Scratchy the cat. Those are 2 separate teams. So whenever we say team, I mean 1 human, 1 handler. To become a registered handler with Pet Partners, the 4 main steps you have to go through are: first, you need to create an account with Pet Partners in our volunteer center. This is one of those things I was just talking about that you should absolutely do now, because our volunteer center is not just a place where you give us your name and your email and your animal's age. It's also a place where we have tons of information to help you really determine if this is the right fit for you. You can read interesting articles. You can see different videos, evaluation videos. You can see some of our teams visiting out in their communities. You can read up about your specific species and what we're looking for. So start that volunteer center account. Avail yourself of all the information there. And yes, we do ask some basic information in order to get you started. The second thing is you're going to take a Pet Partners Handlers course. And I'm going to spend a good few minutes on that a little bit down the road. So I'll get to that. The third, of course, is a veterinarian screening, some paperwork we need from your vet. And the fourth is that in-person evaluation that I just spoke about. So those are the 4 steps you go through. Once you become a registered handler or team, you'll be able to approach facilities in your own community where you can offer to volunteer as a therapy animal team. And the types of facilities where our teams visit there are many types, but let me talk about some common ones. We've got hospitals, schools, libraries, hospice, nursing homes, assisted living, rehab centers. We have people visiting within the criminal justice system. We have people doing more like public education events about animal welfare or caring for your animal. So there's lots of different types of settings. And the biggest thing in terms of determining where you visit is what's going to work for you and what's going to work for your animal. And that is one of the key tenets of the therapy animal program at Pet Partners. And it is, you are your animal's best advocate, or what we call YAYABA. That's the acronym. And part of being your animal's best advocate is choosing a setting where he or she can thrive, and of course where you can thrive as well. Other than that, you get to choose where you go, how often you visit. That could be once a week, it could be once a month, it could be a few times a year, just at the holidays, things like that. It's really up to you. You're in the driver's seat as long as you're visiting within Pet Partners policies and procedures. In terms of what a visit looks like, so those are the settings, but what do they look like? I'm just going to give you a couple of examples, and then I'll stop and check comments and see if anything has come through that I need to answer. But some of the most common types of visits, really the first one is what we might call a social visit. And I don't mean to say social visit to minimize its importance, but rather I say social because the purpose of the visit is to provide company, to reduce isolation, to lower stress. And so you see these types of social visits happening very often in nursing homes and assisted living facilities where isolation is more common. But you also can see them in colleges and universities where our teams are providing a necessary study break or stress reduction for college students who, as many of you know, on college campuses, they don't have a lot of access to animals like they might in their own home or a private home. So social visits are one type that we see a lot. Another type of visit is one I would call maybe more therapeutic in nature. And that's where a volunteer might work with a paraprofessional or a professional in a more formal therapeutic setting. So a good example of that is some of our teams visit with physical therapists. And the physical therapist might be working with a client who's working on mobility in their hands or arms. And so with our team present, that client or patient can work on brushing the animal or petting the animal, and it provides some outside motivation and interaction that makes what the professional's doing potentially more impactful. The third type of visit I want to talk about are reading or literacy visits. And these are really popular, of course, in schools and in libraries where kids can practice reading aloud to animals who, as we know, are generally less judgmental of early readers who may be struggling. And again, it provides that outside motivator. Pet Partners does have a program called Read With Me. And that provides reading specific support and education to our handlers who really want to work in this type of literacy setting. I'm going to pause there. I'm going to check for comments. Julia, who's my colleague, and she's typing in comments as well. Julia, could you put up information about We Are All Ears, which is a kind of virtual program we're doing right now with some of our teams, but also the general public can participate that involves reading to animals. And I'm going to pause there and look at the comments. So yeah, I'm seeing some people comment that they're visiting, but they take breaks because of COVID. I totally understand that. Just for those of you who are curious, some teams are visiting in person in a limited way in certain geographic areas. They are back, for example, at hospitals, but oftentimes they might only be visiting with the staff in a controlled environment. They're obviously not going out to rooms yet like they might normally do. But we do have a lot of teams who are doing alternative type visits during COVID-19 where they are going to windows and visiting through windows, especially at in congregate care settings, right? Or they might be doing a doggy parade around the outside of the building, or they might be visiting outdoors. We're seeing some of that. And then we do have some teams doing really incredible work with virtual visits where they're actually meeting with clients or patients over the computer or through their phone, whatever the format they prefer. So teams are staying busy and active. Other teams are just taking a break. It just really depends on their comfort level and where they live and what's available in their area. Great. So Julia put up We Are All Ears. So for those of you who are interested in some reading stuff, even if you're not an official team, go ahead and check that out. The one other type of visit, and then I'll move back, is walking related visits. Again, just like Read With Me, we have a Walk With Me special initiative. And as you can imagine, this really focuses on having your therapy animal walk and exercise alongside people who may be receiving your visits. And we do have the world's largest pet walk as well, which is one of our signature events. It's coming up this fall. I'm going to ask Julia to put that in the comments as well. And again, that can be something you can participate in even if you're not registered yet. All right. I'm going to, how to qualify my golden. Okay, Beth, that's a great question. We are going to get to eligibility and to some of the key steps in just a moment. Hi, Mari. I hope I'm saying your name right. You want your cat to become a member? Yes, we're going to get to how they can go through that as well, and we welcome cats in our program. So in terms of eligibility, what does your animal need to have or exhibit or need in order to become a team? I'm going to start with some basic stuff, and then we'll talk about what actually makes a good therapy animal. So first of all, animals must be at least 1 year of age, with the exception of pocket pets. So rabbits and rats and guinea pigs, they just need to be 6 months old, but all other species need to be 1 year old. Birds need to have lived in their owner's home for a year. All other species, at least 6 months. So you may have adopted a 5-year-old cat, and that cat would meet our age requirement. But if they've only lived with you for 4 months, they can't yet join the program. We want you to really get to know that animal and have them in your home. Although there is an option to register with an animal that is not your own. If that's something you're interested in, contact us. We can get you that information. I'm not going to focus on that because it's a little bit of a less common situation, but it does happen. I do want to point out, though, that even if your animal doesn't meet those age or in-home requirements, you can start the process before that. So if you have a 6-month-old puppy who seems like this might really be a great fit, or you're interested in pursuing it, you can do lots of work over the next 6 or 8 or 9 months to get him or her ready and take all the steps. You just simply can't evaluate and register until you hit that 1 year mark. Animals must be reliably house trained, of course. They must be on a leash at all times. They cannot be fed a raw protein diet. No animals with a history of aggression towards people or other animals or pets are allowed. I should say specifically other pets. We know that some animals, some dogs do have a interest in squirrels outdoors. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about aggression towards other pets. And then for the safety of your animal and the people that you visit, we of course want your animal to be in general good health, free of parasites. We don't want them any drugs that might compromise their immune system. Having said that, we have lots of animals who do have chronic health issues, but if that health issue doesn't make them uncomfortable and it's something they're used to and they live with, they can still participate in the program. So we have animals who are deaf, we have animals who are blind, we have animals who are tripods. We absolutely welcome animals like that with open arms, again, so long as they're comfortable and they enjoy visiting. If you have an animal who has a chronic health issue of some sort, I do encourage that you reach out to us. Again, contact us appears at the bottom of every page of our website, and let us know what it is. And we can have an individual chat with you. I just always want to make sure that if your animal isn't allowed to participate due to a health issue, we let you know that as soon as we can early in the process. So that's basic eligibility. What makes a good therapy animal, though, beyond this, if they meet all these requirements? The first thing is that they really need to enjoy interactions with a variety of people, including strangers. I really want to emphasize the word enjoy, because enjoy is different than tolerate. Lots and lots of animals will tolerate interactions with people, but you really want your animal to enjoy it. And that doesn't mean they have to enjoy every single person 100% of the time. In fact, some of our most experienced therapy animals who are very happy-go-lucky and relaxed, they sometimes occasionally get stressed when they're on a visit and they maybe encounter somebody they don't enjoy as much. That's going to happen. What we're looking for, though, is animals who generally enjoy it, not merely tolerate it, and that you as a handler can redirect if your animal's not enjoying an interaction with somebody. So I said, enjoy interactions with strangers. The second key word there is strangers. So I'll just share a personal story. Before I joined Pet Partners 4 years ago, I had a dog who I thought would make a great therapy animal. So I started exploring Pet Partners on a volunteer basis. And if you knew him, you would agree with me. He was calm, incredibly obedient. He and I had a great bond, very loving, seemed to know what other people needed from him. But he didn't exhibit all of that until he had met somebody 3 or 4 times. So he tolerated strangers, and then once he got to know you, he really enjoyed those interactions. So that's something you really need to watch in your animal is, do they approach strangers with kind of the same interests as they might approach somebody that they know a little bit better? Because when you're on a therapy animal visit, you're going to see strangers. Some teams are lucky enough to see some of the same people week to week, but a lot of times you're going to be seeing totally different people from week to week if you're somebody who visits weekly. But my point is, even if it's monthly, you might see somebody different in January than you see in February than you see in March. So you need your animal to be comfortable with strangers. In terms of obedience, that's the other thing we look for from our animals, but I want to be really clear that we're not looking for perfect obedience. We're not looking for animals who can participate in an obedience trial. We're looking for just general real-life obedience. And a really important point is that we're looking for animals who can respond to your cues and be obedient even when there are distractions, because therapy animal visitation will have lots of distractions. So you might have a dog who sits really well in your kitchen to take a treat because he knows the kitchen, he knows where the treats are, he knows who you are, but maybe he doesn't sit so well when he's at the park and there's other animals walking by and people playing frisbee. So you really need to work on sort of that obedience even when there's distractions and getting your animal's attention. So as I said at the very beginning of this, there are things that you can work on right now, even as you're staying kind of closer to home and maybe you're not yet ready for an evaluation or there's not one being offered in your area. Working on obedience amidst distractions is something you can do right now. And I'll give you a couple of ideas. You could go to a Petco or a PetSmart and kind of walk the hallways and work on some of this obedience as you pass the treat aisle or as you pass the toy aisle. Those are some really heavy distractions for some animals. I know some Home Depots allow animals, so you could do it there as well. If you are somebody who's comfortable with outdoor dining and you can find a patio that's animal friendly, you could try it there. If you're somebody who doesn't want to do any of those things, I think even going to a parking lot at a shopping center and parking your car and getting out and working on obedience for a few minutes as people kind of move around you and are coming and going. That's where you can work on some of that as well. In terms of actual obedience skills we look for, we want our animals within the program to walk on a loose leash near their handler. We want them to reliably respond to common commands appropriate to their species. So again, I want to call out the fact that we do have species-specific information that you can get in our volunteer center. Once you log into your volunteer center account after you've created it, click on resources, type in cat or rabbit or whatever, and you can get a species packet. And that's where we talk about some of the things we're looking for from those species. Animals cannot jump up on people or equipment or furniture. And so your dog may not jump up on you, but would it not jump up on a walker? That's something you're going to want to kind of figure out and sort through. Animals cannot vocalize inappropriately. Aggressive barking, never acceptable. Animals should take treats nicely. They should not mouth or lick people too much during interactions. Animals should not be overly rambunctious when being petted. And they should be able to walk past other animals without displaying aggression or excessive fear of that animal passing by. Our evaluation actually has a dog that does enter the room. So your dog needs to pass that dog. Your cat needs to be able to pass that dog without getting excessively fearful of the animal. Just so you know, some animals can be carried during that passing. So your animal, if it's a carried animal, when they're passing that other dog that comes in, can be carried, and that provides some comfort. I'm going to stop again and take a break and see what's coming in. Looks like Julia, my colleague, who's responding as Pet Partners, is getting most of your information to you as you're asking for it. Just want to see if there's anything that came through. Okay, here's a question on insurance coverage. So right now, and this could potentially change in the future, watch for news down the road, but right now, our insurance coverage only covers animals when they're volunteering. So the therapy animal program insurance only covers animals when they're volunteering. So bringing your pet to work, even if their pet partner's registered, but they're not actually volunteering and you're not volunteering, your insurance wouldn't necessarily cover you then. So I'll just put that out there. There was a question in there about taking your animal to work under the Pet Partners umbrella. Somebody asked about having a team evaluation through Skype. Right now, no, we are not offering digital evaluations just because there's so much that an evaluator can ascertain from an animal by having their hands on their animal and sensing stress or enjoyment that way. We also need to have somebody have hands on, for example, their paws and make sure that they can tolerate that kind of petting. So that hands on is really important. So unfortunately, we don't do things through Skype. We do offer plenty of other things online, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But all right, I'm going to hop back in because it doesn't look like there's anything Julia hasn't answered yet. Oh, except that I see we have a bunny handler here. That's great. Rabbits are really increasing a lot in popularity. I'm almost done with my spiel, and then I will hang around for sure for any questions that come up or anything you want to chat about, even if it's not specifically about the content I covered today. So I already spent a lot of time talking about what we're looking for in your animal, but one thing that really sets pet partners apart, that's a lot of P sounds, is that we truly believe and have built our program around the fact that the handler is equally as important as the animal. So the handler is key to safe and effective visits. So even though it's really common for people to focus on what does my animal need to do, don't overlook your role as a handler. Pet Partners volunteers, we believe, with our training, are professionals in their interactions with clients and with facility staff. We also help our volunteers, our handlers, our human volunteers, become comfortable interacting with strangers, because for you, that can be a new thing to do on a regular basis, not just your animal encountering strangers, but you as well. And you'll have to respond gracefully to a variety of situations that can arise on a visit. We also really look for our handlers to be proactive handlers, and I'm going to give an example of that. If you have an animal who is really tempted by food, you'll want to be able to redirect any possible interest in food before that becomes an issue. We call that proactive handling, because you might see, okay, I'm visiting this resident on the first floor, and I know that that resident always likes to give my cat a little treat, and my cat doesn't take treats nicely, or I don't want my cat to have a treat, whatever it is. You need to be proactive about that. And that's one of the handling skills that our course will help you develop. But that is what keeps things safe for everybody involved. So proactive handling. I already mentioned YAYA-BA earlier, but I'm going to say it again. YAYA-BA stands for you are your animal's best advocate. And you will be responsible for making decisions about what is and is not appropriate during the visit for you and your animal. And that's part of being your animal's best advocate. When you take the handler's course, you'll hear this a lot, and you need to make decisions based on what is best for your animal, not what is always best for the client or best for you. And again, that keeps people safer because it makes sure that your animal isn't encountering things that make them stressed or is a weak point for them, because you're always out in front of them advocating for it. So that's the handler piece. At the very beginning, I talked about the 4 steps. I'm going to refer to them again. The first is start a volunteer center account. The second is your online handler training, or handler training, which can be done in person as well. The third is veterinarian screening. And the fourth is the in-person evaluation. I'm going to talk about steps 2 and 4, and then I'm done. Step 2 is that handler training. So it can be done in person. Those aren't being offered very frequently right now, understandably, because we do have an online version of the handler course, and we've offered that online version for more than 5 years. So it's not something that we threw together in response to COVID. It is a core part of our curriculum that many of our handlers take, and it helps prepare you for all the things that I just mentioned. This is something you can do right now, because many people like to take the course maybe even twice before they get ready for their evaluation. And it goes over all the policies and procedures, the things you need to bring to your evaluation, how you'll be successful in your evaluation, how you can set up your first visit. And so avail yourself of that if you're considering becoming a team, because you can do it from the comfort of your own home. Step 4 is that in-person evaluation. So these are individual sessions, meaning it's you and your animal with a licensed Pet Partners evaluator. These evaluations typically last 30 to 45 minutes. And our goal with the evaluation is to simulate a therapy animal visit. And so we are going to put you in situations that you might see on a visit. So some of those things might be somebody going in front of you with a wheelchair. It might mean 3 people will come try to pet your animal at once. We call that kind of crowded petting. And how does your animal handle that? How do you direct the people who all want to pet your animal at the same time? What are your skills in terms of saying, you know what, how about we go one at a time? Or, you know what, my bunny really likes to be scratched right here behind his ears. Not so much there. So that's what we're looking for in some of those exercises. Also during the evaluation, we will test some of that basic obedience that we already talked about before. So we're looking at your skills, and we're looking at your aptitude for a potential therapy animal visit. I already mentioned how important handlers are, and you see this in the evaluation. Every team is scored half on the animal, half on the human. And the score sheet even has scores where each member of the team is scored for each specific exercise. So you could have a perfect pig who does everything right, but if you aren't proactive handling and you're not advocating for your animal and you're not showing some of that professionalism, then you may not be ready and you need to come back again. Similarly, you could have all of those skills in place as the human, but if your animal isn't exhibiting that basic obedience or the desire to interact, then maybe he or she is not ready and you'll need to come back and try again. So you really want to make sure that both members of the team are working together to pass that evaluation, because those are the same things you're going to need to do when you're in a hospital or a school or a library, on a college campus, what have you. Last but not least, what are some of the benefits of membership? You heard me just talk a little bit about insurance. So some of you asked a question. So we do have insurance that we provide our teams that is in play when they're on a volunteer therapy animal visit. We also provide everybody with a nice identification badge that they can use while visiting. We offer a ton of free continuing education courses that help you become more effective when you're visiting clients. I already talked a little bit about the coursework and resources and manuals we have for people who do reading visits and walking visits, but those are just some examples. We have many other types of continuing education. Um, I did mention that many of our teams make relationships with facilities on their own. So they approach the nursing home down the street or they approach their child's school. But we also have a whole directory of facilities who are looking for therapy animal teams, and you can search by your location. I know for me in Minneapolis, when I go into my account, I see something like 26, 27 volunteering opportunities within 10 miles of my home. So lots of different facilities will post there. And I think I'll just stop with those benefits. There are some other ones, but those are kind of the key ones I always like to point out. That is all I have prepared to talk about today. I would love to see more questions or comments come in that I can help with, although I know Julia has answered a lot. I will just call out that Bellin and his owners, I'm not sure which owner is on, but Bellin has his own Facebook page. He's one of our long-term canine pet partners, and they mentioned that their favorite part of pet partners is emphasizing that team, the human and animal interaction. And I should just build on that and say that, like, you think a lot about therapy animal visitation as being really beneficial to your community, and it is. But it's so beneficial to your relationship with your animal as well. Even if you love your animal and treat them like a family member, like most of us do, the bond you get from being out there is really something remarkable. So somebody asked if they're a therapy pet, can they still get their service certification? So yeah, so service or assistance animals can be pet partners therapy animals. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes, and we can talk you through it, but there is that possibility to hold both designations. We don't have anything to do with assistance animals, so we can't help you there. But if you have an assistance animal and you want to become a therapy animal team, that is possible. Basil, the therapy cat, is in the house too, watching us, I'm hoping. Just scrolling through the comments here. So somebody asked about whether or not Canine Good Citizens was a formal requirement for joining Pet Partners. No, it's not. Many dogs do CGC. It can be a decent preparation, but it's absolutely not a requirement. I should say about that, and I meant to say this earlier, but I was kind of buzzing through things a little too fast. So I talked a lot about how important it is to work on obedience and having your animal follow cues even during distraction. What I didn't mention there is kind of the training of the animal. And people always ask us, well, what training does my animal need to do? And I should point out that we don't require any specific training for the animal. We only require the training for the handler. And that's because we believe that different animals are going to respond to different types of training. And remember, we register some less common species. So if we made a requirement that everybody has to go through a training class with their animal, what would that mean for our guinea pigs or for our rats or for our birds where they can't find those types of classes, right? So training can happen in a class if that's what you want and that's what you like. And I do know that there's many training facilities right now who are doing outdoor classes for dogs. And some are doing them in their facility as well. But if you feel more comfortable with outdoor interaction, some are doing that. But you could also train in your own home. Or you can do something like CGC. I mean, there's a number of different ways you can prepare for this work, and we trust our handlers as they go through their own coursework to kind of figure out what will work best for their animal. Do you request people visiting with a team wear masks? Okay, so that's a great question, Sandy. So during Pet Partners events, so when our evaluations are happening for new teams, masks are required for everybody in the room. When you're out on a visit and you as the team, should you wear a mask? We highly recommend it, same as the CDC says. And frankly, most facilities are going to require it anyway. In terms of requiring the other person to wear a mask, that's at your discretion as a handler. If you want people you're visiting to wear a mask, we suggest that it's something you make sure the facility is asking their clients or patients or students to do. So you're not always put in the position of like, could you put on a mask before I approach? Again, our experience with the teams who are out there visiting right now is everybody's masked up anyway. But it's always good, if that's your preference, that it be a requirement that you ask that. And if you encounter somebody who isn't wearing a mask and you want them to, you do not have to visit with them. So we always empower our handler. You know, you got to take care of yourself too. Pets should never wear masks. Just putting that out there. I know some people are doing cute little pictures with them, selfies, things like that, but they should obviously not wear masks. So Kimberly asked a great question here. She says, as far as I know, I'm the only registered therapy team in my area. What can I do, or how would I go about forming a community in my area? So that's a good question. First of all, I should just say, if you want to find out if there are teams in your area, you can log into a volunteer center account and see if there's a community partner or community group in your area. Some people assume there isn't something that exists, but there is. And some of our community partners or groups don't actually have pet partners explicit in their name. And so it can be kind of hard to tell that you have a pet partners group in your area. So be sure you're checking. If you do really realize that you are alone and you want to be connected with other handlers, couple options. First, we have an online community where after you log into your volunteer center account, one of the main things you can click on is online community. You can go in there and you can just ask around. Is anybody in Asheville, North Carolina? And see if you can connect with people that way. Another option is to contact us, and sometimes we are willing to send a message to handlers. If we see that there's somebody in your area, we can send a message to them on your behalf saying somebody's looking to connect. We do not share our handlers' emails with others without their consent, but we can do the reach out for you. And then the last thing I just want to say is lots of volunteers volunteer alone, and they don't have other teams in their area. And as nice as it is to have a community of like-minded volunteers, lots of people do it successfully alone. So I just want to be really clear. You don't have to volunteer with others. You don't have to join a local group. You can just be a Pet Partners member, and many of our members are like that nationally. So hope I answered that question. Okay, somebody asked me to remind of my name and role. Yes, I can't believe I didn't say this at the beginning. I was so concerned with knowing who was on the call, and I had a little bit of tech glitch that I forgot. My name is Jessie Haas. I am the National Director of Programs for Pet Partners. That's who I am. And I work with a wonderful staff of 8 people who are all supporting our volunteers and our prospective volunteers. That's actually sometimes more of what we do in a day, is helping prospective people understand the process and get set up for success. And so I'm just one of many people who help with our therapy animal program. Just scrolling through. So somebody asked for the phone number of our contact in Argentina. I obviously don't want to put that here. We do have a really active group, Pet Partners of Argentina. We are a international organization. If you contact us on our website, Mari, I'd be happy to connect you with the person there who's open to getting those kind of inquiries. So is it a possible issue with COVID contamination by having other people pet your dog? So technically, it could happen. But the CDC actually has stated that the risk is low of that kind of transmission. So the CDC has some information out there. In fact, the CDC has now a statement or a report or an article, a webpage. They have a section just about therapy and assistance or service animals and sort of how to make those interactions as safe as possible. But again, for folks who don't want to take any risk at all, just remember, tons of teams are doing really interesting things right now. I'm just fascinated to see what people come up with to stay connected with the clients and patients and facilities where they normally visit. Julia, do you feel like I've missed anything? If I have, type it in the comments directly to me. I'm just scrolling up. So many things came in. I'm afraid I missed somebody's questions. Oh, somebody asked about discounts for our costs. We do have limited discounts for certain situations. Senior citizens, we have discounts for people who are registering with more than one animal. And then in terms of ways to make it more economical, just so you know, like you can do the coursework now and pay that fee. And the coursework is a one-time fee. You don't have to pay the coursework over and over again. And you can work on the coursework, take a couple months to get ready, then go to the evaluation, and then you don't actually pay your registration fee until you're done with the evaluation. So actually it is pretty spaced out. It's almost like a natural payment plan, if you will, in terms of the two primary costs associated. There's one other thing nobody asked me, but I'm going to say it because I didn't mention it, but we require an evaluation for all new teams, but Pet Partners also believes really strongly in evaluating teams every 2 years and making sure that it's still a good fit. So after you join Pet Partners, we do have touch points with you every 2 years to have that evaluation. You don't have to redo the coursework, but you do have to redo that evaluation. We do need paperwork from your vet. And while this can be a minor inconvenience in that you have something you need to do, most handlers do really appreciate it because they want to make sure that they and their animal are kind of verified every 2 years. Like, yeah, my animal still enjoys this. I still enjoy this. My vet still thinks my animal's healthy. And that, again, just keeps everybody safe over time. Because as you can imagine, a 10-year-old large breed dog might feel different about visiting now than he did when he was 2. And that's something that handlers can have kind of checked and looked at by our evaluators over time. So I should mention that as well, that it's an ongoing relationship. Yeah, so Tina chimed in here and said Basil, who I think is a cat, Tina, right? So Basil is developing a virtual visit program at a local hospital in Ohio. So that's awesome because it sounds like in-person visits are off limits there right now. Yeah, Kathleen, I'm glad to have you and Phoebe join us too when you guys are ready. Happy to be here. So I'm not seeing any new questions come in, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. But please reach out to us. You can DM us right here on Facebook. Julia monitors those, the same person who's doing comments, and she can get back to you with any questions or use the contact us. So again, I'm Jessie Haas. I'm with the Therapy Animal Program at Pet Partners. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great weekend. Take care. I'm just going to wait for any last things to come through. All right. Awesome. Thanks. Bye.